Good morning, and welcome back to another edition of Eric. What is taking so long? Why isn't this done yet? Clearly, the answer to that is I'm spending too much time laying around in chairs. Most of what got done this week centered around the electrical system and making sure that I wasn't going to have any surprises when I tried to turn the key. I got the horns mounted where I want them. Eventually, I'm going to go through and make a little box to protect them from the elements, but for right now, they're out of the way and off the side and not up at the radiator support where I'm going to have to take them off and put them on and take them off and put them on every time I take the radiator support off. But for now, they're tucked up behind the fenders where they should be reasonably safe. This one was pretty easy and straightforward. I put the fenders on, marked the area where I wanted the horns with a piece of tape, drilled a couple holes, ran the wires. Eventually, I'll go back and create a little enclosure to keep these things even further out of the elements without hurting the sound, hopefully. But for right now, I'm hoping that they're going to be okay here. We'll see. Got another gauge in, installed the water temperature sender, ran that wire and loomed it. Hopefully be getting the instrument panel hooked up sometime in the next week or so that I can check the monitor, make sure that everything is working the way it's supposed to. The first two gauges that I ordered installed were the oil pressure and the water temperature. In my opinion, those are some of the more important. The fuel pressure is actually fairly easy to check, and it's a mechanical pump, and I know it's pumping right now, so down the road I'll get that one installed, but for right now, these two are pretty important in my opinion. I started attaching most of the grounds this week. The alternator is now grounded to the motor. The motor is grounded to the firewall. Um, fuse relay panel is grounded to the chassis. So a lot of that type of stuff, so that I can start completing electrical circuits. Hoping that inside of this week I will be able to have this thing start and run with the ignition like a real car. Bad grounds are a really, really common plague in automotive electrical systems. So I got ahead and spent a little bit of time this week getting these started and up to date. They're pretty solid. I think they should make a nice circuit. The headlights are in, tested, function, dimmer switch works. I now have lights in the front. As soon as I get the car taken care of on the front end, I'll spin it around and work on the lights in the back, but those should be fairly easy. Marker lights are also done, and they work. I haven't had a chance to test the turn signals yet, simply because the steering column isn't installed, because I needed to wait to install the steering column until after I finished the clutch cable and clutch quadrant modifications for that. And with the relay panel grounded, I installed the fuses for the high beams and low beams, hooked up the battery and hooked up the headlights and gave them a couple of test runs. Initially, I had a failure, but it was because I forgot to put the fuse in for the main wire that runs to the relay panel. Once I had the headlights working, I moved on to the marker lights. I can't check for turn signals yet, like I mentioned, but both of the marker lights work now, so that's a good start. Pretty much ready to start putting the electrical system together at this point. Everything else should be easy now. But before I can worry about the lights in the electrical system, I need to be able to put the fenders on, and I can't quite do that just yet. And what I wrapped up the week with was the clutch system. The car originally came with a Z-bar mechanical linkage that controlled the clutch. I can't use it for a couple of different reasons because of the mods I've made to this car, so that meant that I either needed to go hydraulic or I needed to go cable. I didn't really want to go hydraulic, so I bought a cable for a 94 Mustang, and I've been kind of working on routing and layout, and that meant that I had to fabricate a clutch quadrant for the pedal so that it could pull, and I used the same base for the 94 Mustang that I used for this car, kind of give me an idea of how it's going to work. And then I needed to be able to set up the cable so it was properly routed so it didn't melt with the headers and stuff. So I'm going to get that finished up this week, hopefully. Once that's done, I can install the steering column, finalize all the lights, put the ignition system completely in. I still have a bunch of stuff to do. Have a good week. I had temporarily run the clutch cable to measure for distance, and now I just needed to move it over so it aligned somewhat with the clutch. So I made a couple marks and drilled a couple holes, temporarily installed it, and then moved on to modifying the pedal itself. I cut the old Z-bar linkage bracket off and then ground everything nice and smooth. When I'm done with this and I know the quadrant works, I'll go through and make sure that everything is welded solid. The aluminum quadrant out of my son's 94 Mustang has a nice smooth radius for pulling, so I kind of use that as the basis for the steel quadrant that I'm putting in the 68. Traced it out on a couple of pieces of really thick metal steel, and then cut them out with a bandsaw. Until I knew exactly what shape I was going to do, I figured I could start at the top and work my way down with trimming. And once I had both pieces cut out, I clamped them together so that they were, uniform, and started cutting and or grinding to get two duplicate pieces. I then took a piece of 1/4-inch angle stock that I was going to use for the spacer, cut that down into a piece of manageable sections, and then cut the angle off because really all I needed was the 1/4-inch thickness. Ground everything smooth and then ground the radius down and laid it out on the inside of the quadrant. And like I said, this is going to create the spacer where the cable will run in between the two metal plates on the outside. And then I drilled a couple holes, and eventually I'll weld these pieces all together into one uniform section, but still got more testing to do. I'll get to that next week. I wanted to keep as many of the parts consolidated to as few years as possible, so a lot of the parts on the 68 Mustang are off of the SN95 chassis, the 94, 95 type Mustangs. The brakes, the clutch cable, hopefully. The quadrant is modified and mocked up after the similar type of quadrant. And so this is what the new pedal looks like, or the modified pedal, I should say, since it's not new. Cable comes through the firewall and connects right there. And then we've got a reasonably smooth, hopefully, pull. And eventually I'll get this all ground down and cleaned up. So when I press the pedal, it pulls the cable like this and operates the clutch. And I've got two adjustment points. I can go there, or I can go to the top. So hopefully I've got all the adjustment that I need. We'll find out.